Hello, it's Tristan here from Zebra Invest, and I'm just outside our latest purchase, Ivory House. She's just an All Saints Green in Norwich city centre, and it's a property and a purchase that took almost three and a half years to be able to get through and to purchase. She's a grade 2 listed property with 7 flats inside her, and one of the nice things about her is she was last refurbished in 2000, and the benefit of that being means that she's got all the plumbing, she's got all of the electrics, all the fire safety, and everything all in roughly the right places. So when it comes to it, we just need to refurbish it, turn it round, and then what we're going to do is then sell the properties on in future. But it's already had most of its legal work done. So the original owner had actually split the title into seven separate flats. So each of them got 125-year leases on them. What we're planning to do is when it comes to selling them, people can actually buy them share a freehold. So what they'll do is they'll buy the buy their leasehold flat as normal, and then they'll then pay £1 each, and then they can then buy into the freehold of the property. This means that they can then have the building, look after it and keep it and maintain it in future. But it took a whopping 3.5 years to be able to buy this. We originally went off and viewed the property, I think it was around about August 2022, maybe 23, and we went off May 22, went off, found the property, had been sitting on Rightmove for a long time. The sellers had listed the property for a total of £1.6 million, and they had very little interest, and with good reason. What they had tried doing is they'd taken on one of the flats in the building and started splitting it into 2. And in trying to split that flat into 2, they actually didn't have any planning permission to do it, neither did they have any building control sign off or had listed building consent, so they got stopped in their tracks. But in doing so, that made that flat completely unmortgageable. The next bit was, which we've just got a whole load of scaffold up on the side of the building at the moment, it had a Buddleia, which is effectively a tree growing outside the corner of it. And in doing so, water has just been pouring into the side of the building, so much so that the flat 2 downstairs was absolutely sodden wet. So what I've mentioned before on my YouTube videos is I like buying empty properties, and in this building 4 out of the 7 have sat empty for 2+ years, and that means that we're able to do most of the refurbishment works or anything where we've got trade to VAT registered at 5%, and that's a fantastic saving, especially when you consider just how much this work this building needs. We've got a total of, I think we've got around about £300,000 to spend on the building, and once she's all done, the idea is to turn it round and then start selling each of the flats. So we did have a few problems when it came to buying this. So the first one was we agreed to buy the property from the seller, from the 2 owners of the property themselves. This wouldn't usually be a problem, but the problem came to be that the 2 of them weren't earning enough to cover their mortgage. So whilst I agreed to buy it from them, they weren't covering their mortgage, and actually they stopped communicating altogether with my solicitors. In the process when this was happening, I'd kicked off listed building consent, and kicking listed building consent off is basically you go through, explain what you're looking to do, what you're trying to achieve, you submit almost like a planning application, a very detailed one that stipulates what changes you might have, if you're going to be doing any brickwork, how the brickwork might change, if you're doing any repairs like we've just done here, what they're going to be, and we even had to build an example wall to be able to demonstrate what repairs we're going to be doing, how we're going to repair it and put it together. So whilst they weren't able to sell it to me and they pulled out, it gave me a fair amount of time, and after the first year we'd managed to get listed building consent. I tend to tell most people what I'm looking at, what I'm interested in, if I'm looking to work with someone else, and what projects I've got on the go. And luckily enough, I did that exactly on Ivory House. I'd reached out to a few people, and my friend Tom reached out and he said, "Look, Tom, Tristan, I've been offered Ivory House." And I was like, "Well, how on earth have you been offered Ivory House? I'm buying it." And in doing so, he actually introduced me to the new sales agent who is now taking over and looking after the property. So I then reached out to Buddleia, they're a national agent, reached out to Buddleia and explained that I'd been interested in the property, what I'd done, how I'd got the listed building consent sorted, and that I'd like to buy it again. So this time round, we actually managed to agree to buy the property for 1.1 million, and that is £300,000 less than what I'd agreed to buy from the individuals, and 350,000 higher. Oh no, sorry. £70,000 higher, £50,000 to £70,000 higher than what I had originally offered. So it starts to make it out to look like a good deal. But the problem was we're buying all the leasehold flats, or the flats from the lender, but we're not buying the freehold. Now that's where it got tricky, and that's what tripped us up quite a few times along the way. So without the freehold, it's going to be a little bit of a difficult transaction because the building's got quite a few repairs to do. This isn't our pointing, this is what the previous owner had done, but where water has just been running straight down the outside of the building, and it's solid masonry walls, water ingress had been getting in. And stuff like this needs completely repointing and repairing. But without the freehold, we wouldn't necessarily have the permission to be able to do it, get up here and do the repairs that it needs. Also, when it comes to selling a leasehold flat, you usually need permission from the freeholder to do so. And if there's no freeholder in place, well, we're not going to get the permission to do it. So as the purchase was going along, we managed to negotiate with the original owners of the freehold to the building to buy the freehold. And now that sounds fine. We managed to try and help things, ease things and smooth things over. We said we'd cover their legal costs, we'd get that all covered and sorted. But unfortunately, and they weren't really, they also had a charge over the freehold. So then we had to find out who had the charge over the freehold. And we managed to find the company based up in Manchester, and then reached out to them. And actually, as soon as we got hold of them, they were quite willing and quite happy to talk to us and see if we could help them. And in doing so, we had a chat with them, we were able to help them, and the receivers for the bank on the building, they actually covered off and paid off the charge, so then that way we could go ahead and buy the building, buy the freehold. So finally we got the freehold, we've got the purchase agreed for all of the flats, and things are starting to go in the right direction. And with this one project, I've got a joint venture partner who has backed me all the way through it. Great chap, and has been really supportive with it. So we've got the investor, we've got the freehold, we've got the property, and we've got the legal sorted. And that's all moving forward. So in the time that it's taken from agreeing to buy the property to actually getting it across the line, the valuation has now expired. So we now have to pay for a new valuation. The valuer comes in and unfortunately values the whole building down by £140,000, which is a significant extra amount of equity or cash that we need to go in to buy the property. So what do we do? Well, we approached Buddleia and we explained the problem, and we said, look, you know, the price or the value of the building's moved since the time that we've agreed to buy it, and then we'd agreed to split the cost on it. So by splitting the loss of value between the two of us, we ended up purchasing it for just £1,030,000, which for the size of the building, what we've got with it, is a pretty good price. But the next bit is now we finally managed to get that through. We then had to then try and get the purchase across the line, and trying to make sure that you get your lender happy. Now that was a different matter. It took quite a lot of time, a lot of questions, and they wanted to understand, you know, the inside leg measurement for you. But we finally got that across the line. So 3.5 years later, we're finally the owners of Ivory House, and now we've got a total of 7 flats to refurbish. So what I'm going to do is in another video I'll run through and show you what we're refurbishing, what our plans are for Ivory House, and what we intend to do with it, and what it's going to be used for hopefully in future. So yeah, if you hopefully you've enjoyed this little video. If you've got any comments or questions, please drop them in below. Hopefully you like it, and subscribe, so I'll see you again. Cheers.